Welcome back, guys. Today we're taking a look at creating a Glassmorphism design, and as you guys can see over here, my credit card design, it has this nice glass look and feel to it that you can see the background that gives like the slight blur over that circle. The same goes right here at the bottom. So in today's one, I'll show you how you can go ahead and get this look and feel using Tailwind CSS, and also how to add this small functionality that updates the credit card information in real time. So if I go ahead and just do that and click out of this input, you guys will see that information updates in real time. If I click this pay now button, you get this animation also going over here, just to show that something is happening with this checkout or payment page that you can use on any of your applications. If you guys would like to know how to do this, I highly suggest that you stay tuned. But before we get started developing and designing this amazing application that I really do like, I have to do this. I have to welcome all my first time comers here on this channel. My name is CPO, and I try my best to bring you all content, design and development related, in order to assist you to become the best developer that you were inspired to be. If that sounds like something that you can get behind, I highly recommend that you go ahead and click the subscribe button, click the bell button so to get notified every time I publish a new video. And if you like this type of content, smash that like button. The YouTube algorithm likes that for some weird reason. So as with all my tutorials, I highly suggest you guys go ahead and open up your code editor of choice. I'm using Visual Studio Code. I don't want to go ahead and say use it, but it will really help you if you go ahead, follow along with this video using Visual Studio Code. Go ahead and create your React app running npx, create React app, name it whatever you want to name it. And once that is run, you should see a link right about now in this video that takes you to one of my previous videos where I show you how to install Tailwind CSS with your React application. So go ahead and quickly hop over to that video and install Tailwind CSS. And once you have done that, you have created your React app, you have installed Tailwind CSS, you are now ready to follow along with this video. So if you guys have installed everything, you should have the same files that I have about now, or maybe not directly the same, because I went ahead and deleted all the unnecessary files that I won't use, files like the test that I don't use, and I've gone ahead and cleaned up my index.js, remove all of the imports that I don't use. As you guys would see down here, you have that comment and that web vitals thingy. Removed all of that I'm not going to use in this application. Same goes with my app.js. I removed the logo, the CSS. I've deleted the app.css file because that I'm not going to use, and I'm only left with this clean app file. And the only thing that I need to bring under your attention is this Tailwind CSS import that Tailwind actually does instruct you to do when you do follow along with that video. So you guys should have around until here. And the only CSS that I've added into this is this little bit over here, because for some weird reason when I use the backdrop of Tailwind CSS, it doesn't pick up. So I've just went ahead and added this custom CSS class with this backdrop filter of blur 10, and that is what creates that blur effect over here. So if you guys can go ahead and just copy this CSS, and then you are ready to get started styling actually this application, because this one is more styling than really developing or adding functionality to it, because we want to get this look, this nice look. I really love it. This glass look, I really love it. It's my first one. Hit me up in the comments, let me know what you guys think. If you have created one before which you feel looks much better than mine, add a link in the comments so that I can go ahead and check it out, and maybe I'll just show it as an image in one of my next videos. You'll never know, you could be famous. But yeah, let's get into this. So with all applications, we're just gonna change this app class that we're not going to use. I'm just gonna change this container, because this is one of those Tailwind CSS classes. I'm gonna say container full, and I now want this container to be full width. So this container is actually gonna be the entire container that contains this black background, also with this gradient background. So I'm gonna say the width, it's gonna be screen. So this is gonna make the width 100%. As you guys can see, it's over there, width 100 view width, and also same thing with height. That's gonna be screen. So now I have 100 view h and 100 view width for my height and my width. Let me do Control B just to hide my sidebar, because we are going to spend all of our time just in this one file, so we won't be visiting any other files. So let me go ahead and add more classes to this. So the next class that I am going to add is just to say I want it to be a type of flex, and I want to align the items center. So that's what I'm going to add. And the next thing that I want to do is that this gradient is actually this entire background gradient, not just this black. So I'm going to go ahead and add that gradient over there. And all of these classes that I'm using now, guys, you can find it in Tailwind CSS's document. So go ahead and check that out. If you're unsure that where are these files coming from, it's the Tailwind CSS docs. So basically what I'm doing now, I'm saying background color or background is going to be gradient, and I'm going to say 2, and that's going to be where 2 needs to go. So I'm going to say bottom right, and that's where the BR comes in, and then I'm going to add the classes. So you're going to go from, and as you guys can see, it says from red. So I'm going to say from red 600, which will give me that color, to purple. So that's where it's going to end. So I'm going to say purple 500. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my classes actually in multiple lines so that we can see them better. So let me do that. So what I'm doing with this container, I'm just saying make it a container full width, give it a width of 100 view width, give it a height of 100 view h, and make it the flex display flex. Align the items, all of them center, make my gradient, make my background a gradient, and the gradient's direction is going to be to bottom right, and that, as you guys can see, it's going to be a linear gradient to bottom right. And I'm just adding the colors that it needs to start with this red 600 and ends with that purple 500. So if I go ahead and just do an h1 over here, say this is title, I'm going to save this, I'm going to open up my task, my terminal, so I can go ahead and say yarn start. So that we have my gradient. You guys can see it runs full width. It starts with this red color, it has then this purple, and then it mixes nicely in the middle. And there's my text that says this is title, which is that text over there. So let's start adding some of the other containers that we're going to have in this application. So I'm going to have another div inside of this one, and let's add the classes. I'm going to say class name. So this one is also going to be a container. It's going to be display flex, and I want the background of this one to be black, and I'm going to add a color to my text. So my text is going to be a gray 300, and I'm just going to say align my items. I want my items here to align center, and I'm just going to add a padding on the x-axis of 4. And that's my padding on the x-axis. And the next thing that I'm going to do is just add another div inside of this one. As I've said, guys, this is more styling than actually this developing than code. So you guys, we are going to use a lot of Tailwind CSS classes in this one so that we can get that look and feel. So I'm going to add another padding on the x-axis of 4 inside of this div, and that's about 16 pixels. And then I'm going to add h1 to it, and inside of this h1 I'm going to say please make your payment. So this is just some type of a checkout page or a payment gateway that you may be developed in your application, and you want to have a nice look and feel for your checkout page. So that's going to be my h1. So let me just add my h1 classes in this one. So I'm going to say class name. On my first one, I'm just going to make the text a bit bigger. So I'm going to say text is going to be 2 extra large, which makes it around 22 pixels. Sorry, 24 pixels. And I'm going to say my font is going to be semi-bold. I want my font to be semi-bold, and I want my text to be aligned center. And now that I've said that, I want to add that gradient background look. So what I'm going to do, just add in the new line so that we have space, and you guys can always see the classes that I'm working with. So I'm going to say background. So my background clip is going to be text, and then my text is going to be transparent. Then I'm going to add a gradient to my background as well. So I'm gonna say background gradient dot to right, and then my colors as same as on top. I'm gonna start with from, so from this green color of 400, and then I'm gonna say to this blue color of 500, and then I can go ahead and just say enter so that you can see that please make your payment. Let's save this and let's see how this looks. There we have it, please make your payment. Now let me quickly have a look. I think I am just want to check something here. Okay, so please make your payment. That's my H1. It's fine. Let's continue with this. So under this payment, under this H1, I have a small tag, and this small tag is just gonna say enter credit card details. So don't enter your real details into this one. I'm just always enter fake details, because you don't want people purchasing stuff online using your credit details just because they used your real one in a tutorial video. So this text, I'm just gonna make it 400, and I'm gonna say my text must be aligned center, and then I'm gonna go ahead and say display, it's gonna be block. Guys, so my display is gonna be block. Just want to make sure here on top I have everything right. Text is gonna be extra large, that's gonna be semi bold, text is center, background clip is text, transparent, background gradient gonna be to right, and I'm adding the gradient there. Okay, so I have all of that. Now I'm just gonna add my horizontal line. So I can go ahead and say HR self closing tag. I'm gonna add some classes to this because I want it to be a very light gray instead of the default gray that it gives us. So I'm gonna say opacity gonna be 20, so it's gonna be 0.2, and then margin top is going to be 6, and also my margin bottom it's going to be 8. I'm just gonna save this, and as you guys can see there, I have that thin line over there. Nice. And then I have my gradient in my title background with my text that I have in there. It's gonna come together, guys, as we go along. So yeah, bear with me. Let's do the input. That's not how you write an input, so I'm gonna do input with a self closing tag. So my input type is going to be text, so let's first sort that out. So I have my text going over there, and I'm gonna add a class to it, so class name, and I'm gonna add a couple of classes. So it's gonna be width full, which makes it 100%, padding on a y-axis of 2, which makes it like 8 pixels, and then margin bottom of 3. I'm going to say rounded, which give me the rounded corners of around 6 pixels. Then margin left going to be 1.5, and I'm going to add a background gray of 700. I'm going to make my text a bit lighter, so my text is going to be gray of 200, and I'm going to just add a padding on the x-axis of 2. That's my input, and then just gonna add a placeholder to it. So let me go ahead and do enter over here so we can always see our classes. So let me add a placeholder, and my placeholder text is gonna be account, gonna be my account holder, and then I'm gonna go ahead, I think that's fine. Let me just bring up this guy and copy you a couple of times down. So I'm just gonna hold on shift and alt. If I do this, I'll shift and alt and arrow down, it copies it down. So I'm gonna have the second one, 1 2, and this one is gonna be card number. Change that. So that's going to be my card number. The classes is going to be exactly the same. And then the other thing I'm going to have in here is another div. Let's do div self closing, and this div is going to have a class. And the only thing I want to do is just say flex, so that the following inputs can actually be next to each other. So I'm going to say input self-closing tag, type going to be text. Now my type is text. I'm going to add a class to it. You guys should know that the reason why we're using Tailwind CSS is all of these classes that we are adding in our design. And as I've discussed in my previous video, is that the nice thing about Tailwind CSS is that you are actually designing while developing your application. So you don't finish up the development of the application then coming back to the design of it. You are actually doing it as you are developing your application. So now I want to know from you guys, do you think it's better to go ahead and first knock out the functionality of your application and then come back to focus on the design, or do you guys prefer first knocking out the design, the look and feel of your application, and then coming back to say, okay, now I'm going to knock out my functionality of it? Or do you like this approach where you are kind of planning out your design and your functionality of your application at the same time? Let me know, and the only place currently you guys can let me know is in the comments. So go ahead and just blast that comments, fill it up with all your thoughts. I would like to know from you guys, what are your take on this, how you guys feel, and what you guys think about it. So for me personally, knocking out a look while also thinking of the design of an application, it's really helpful. It kind of, I don't know if it saves time, but you are busy doing the functionality of the application while at the same time doing the design of the application. But that's just my thoughts, guys. Let me know what you guys think. So what I have done now, it's my month and my year input. So let me quickly explain what this class is over here, because this is the only one we currently don't have on top. So this one just say the width, it's half, so it's 50% of the width. If I hover over it, it's going to show you that it's going to take 50% of the width. And this is one of those things that really differs or sets Tailwind apart from any other CSS framework like Bootstrap or Material Design. This is one of those things that you have classes that gives you precision on utilities or CSS properties. So you can actually go ahead and say, if I want this input to be 1/3 of the viewport, you can set it up by just adding a width class to say width dash 1/3. Then the width will be a 1/3 of the view that it's been given. So Tailwind CSS really gives you that power to say you can style your application as deep as you want to. So I'm babbling, but I think it's important to let you guys know about this stuff. I'm just adding my button classes over here as well. So this is a custom class that I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and say the width is going to be full width. Let's make it 100%. Margin top is going to be 5. I wanted to have rounded corners of full, which makes it like rounded corners of also 100% of 9999 pixels. And I'm going to go ahead and say padding on the x-axis of 6, padding on the y-axis of 2, and my background is going to be a gradient, so I'm going to put in a new line. So let me go ahead and put that in a new line. Maybe I don't need to make 2 new lines, sorry about that. Let me say bg gradient 2 to the right section, and from, give it the first color, it's going to be pink 400, and then 2 is going to be purple 500. And that's my button over here. And let me just add the text to say pay now. So I added the text to say pay now, and that is my button. Let me just go out of this div, and in here we're going to start looking at the other side of this. So let me go ahead and do this. So this is just the input section, or the form section, if I can put it that way. So now we're going to do this side of the application, and it kind of looks really ugly at the moment. Let's just save and see what we have. And there you guys can see we have our inputs, right over there, and as soon as we start adding the other side, it should start coming together. Now let me go ahead and add that div, and add its classes. So first thing first, I'm going to say container, margin right is going to be auto. I want it to be a display flex. My items must be center, and also justify my content center. So let me save that. It pushes this a bit to this side. I just want to check why are you not doing the full height thingy. So that's you, background item. Just want to make sure, because that's where the background black is, and I know I should have a class in here that says height the entire screen. Should have that class in there. I save it. There we go. That makes more sense. So I've missed that class over there, and that is why this didn't take up the entire height. So I've just added that class, and let's continue then with the other section of this application. So now I'm going to add a new div, and I'm going to give it a class name. So let's add this class. So padding on the x-axis is going to be 3. I'm going to add padding on the y-axis is 5 as well, and I want this to be display grid. So not display flex, but not to be display grid. And I'm going to say my grid columns are going to be 2, and I just want to say my grid rows, I'm going to have grid rows of 4. Then let's go ahead and say justify content center, and I'm going to say position must be relative. I'm doing it in a new line just for spacing purposes. So I'm going to give it a Z index of 10, and also my background gradient to bottom right. I'm going to say from gray 300 to transparent, and that's my card actually design that I'm doing there. And I want its width also to be half of the screen, so I'm going to do width 1/2, which is going to be 50%. My background, I'm going to give it an opacity of 20, so I'm going to say background opacity of 20, that's 0.2, and I'm going to go ahead and just make it in a new line and have a height of 80. It's going to have rounded corners of MD, and I'm going to add a shadow to it as well, and my shadow is also going to be MD. And I'm going to add that custom class that I've added in my CSS. You gotta see that card class in order to pick up that background clip. So let's go ahead and add that image. So the first thing I'm going to do is say add an image with the source, and my image is going to have a class name. So I'm just going to add my classes that I'm using on the image, which is going to be the width, it's going to be 8, height is going to be 8. The margin on the x-axis is going to be auto, so it pushes itself to the center. And then I'm going to say its call span, it's going to be 2. I'm going to do a self-closing tag on that, and I'm going to go ahead and add that image. So unfortunately guys, I did not go ahead and copy this image URL, so I'm just going to have to type it out. I think what I can do is just go over here and do right click, just copy image link. Yeah, I think I've missed it, and just paste it in here. Save it, and there we have it. So we have our image, and as you guys can see, we have this blur effect, not really blur, but like this almost transparent glass effect that you can almost see what's happening there, the background, but down at the bottom you can definitely see the background. And that's where that gradient comes in, to say from a specific gray color to transparent. So you guys will see in the background, once we add the circle section, it will show us much better how the image or the card makes a blur effect on the circles itself, which gives us that type of glass look and feel. So yeah, I think let's go ahead and add some of the other elements, which is going to be an h1 that I have in here. And then this h1 is going to be a class name equal to, So I'm just gonna say you're going to have to be call span 2. My text over here is going to be large, so I'm going to say text 2 times extra large, which makes it like 14 pixels. And then my font is also going to be semi bold, and I'm just going to add some default details here of John, let's say John Rainy Doe. So that's the card holder, and let's do a paragraph tag, and the card number is going to be 555-1515 0008181. So let me just add that class to this one as well. Class name, I'm just adding the classes. This also going to be a call span 2. Say text is going to be gray 800. My font size is going to be medium. And the next thing that I want to do is add my dates. So let me just go ahead and enter in here. So I'm going to do a p tag. Inside of this p tag, I'm just going to do a span. So let me do span and add my classes inside of the span. I can go ahead and do text is going to be small, not capital letter, just text small. My font size of 14 pixels. And then I'm going to say my text is going to be gray. That's going to be gray 700. I'm actually going to change this to extra small 700. That's going to be 700, and this is going to be my expire date, all caps, and my closing span. So that's going to be my expiring date, and my expiring date, I'm just going to add some default expiring date to it, which will be not 15 because there's no 15th month. Let's say 10 over the year 2014. So outside of this p tag, I'm going to have an image. So I'm going to say image source equal to, and I'm just going to add my classes to this image that I'm going to use, which is going to be width 10. Then I want your height also to be 10, which is like 40 pixels. And I'm going to go ahead and say margin left, I want it to be auto, so that you push yourself to the right side as far as possible. And margin on the y-axis is going to be auto, so it seems like it's kind of centered. And I'm going to do the same thing with this image. I'm just going to go copy this URL, and I'm going to paste it in here because it's actually a long one. Imagine I had to type all of this. You guys would have sat there and be like, no dude, please do something else with this image. So yeah, actually find a way to just quickly copy it and paste it. So that is my image that I have. So if I save this, let's quickly view what we have on this side, and our card is already getting there. We have that chip, we have John Rainy Doe, which is the account holder, we have the account card number, we have the expiring date also showing, and with the MasterCard icon on this card. So we're almost done with this one. So what we're going to do now is just add those circles at the bottom. So I'm just going to add a div right here, and these are going to be empty divs because what I'm going to do is just style them using the CSS, meaning that there's nothing actually in them. So I'm just going to make it rounded full, which is like 100% full, and I'm going to give them a height of 40 and also a width of 40 so that they are perfectly circled. If the width and height is the same, it's going to be a perfect circle. The position is going to be absolute. And I'm going to add a top of 1/4, which is a quarter. Right, is just setting that right class to say 7, which is around 28 pixels. And then I'm going to add my background gradient to it. So I'm just going to say BG, but I'm not going to actually add a background gradient. Let me just do a background color. So I'm going to say BG white. I can add the gradient at a later stage with a Z index of 0. So I'm going to copy this down because there's actually 3 circles. But if I save this one quickly, let's have a look. So as you can see is that circle over there, but the white is too harsh, and that's why I actually went with the background color, because that white just pops out of that background pink. But the most important thing, as you guys can see, you can see that blur effect on the card. When the card is over the circle, it gives you that gloss effect that you can't really see the circle, but you can see the circle as well. And that's what glass does. It does like a vision thingy. I don't know, the guys who know glass, they will explain this to you much better. But yeah, that is why I had that. So I think I'm just gonna add my gradient in here. Instead of just using a background color, I'm gonna use the gradient, so that the gradient looks much better. So I'm gonna have a gradient to bottom right, and I'm gonna say from white to transparent. And I'm just gonna copy this down twice. And the only thing I'm gonna change is the position of this circle, which is this one is on top 1/4. So I'm just gonna change here to bottom 1/3. And if you guys are wondering how I am getting all of this, honestly, all tutorials, if you're not like a pro that's been doing it for more than 30 years, we go ahead and do the applications beforehand, and then whenever we're doing a tutorial, we just referencing to the code we already done. So this means that I already played around with all of the circles, moved them around, and saw which classes are actually going to work perfectly to get them where I need them to be. And that is why I can say exactly how much the class must be, or how much the width and the height must be for it in order to work perfectly in the video. But obviously this is not like I'm just doing it out of my mind and it works at the first try. I've done this a couple of times over and over again, and then only once I've got it right, I recorded a video. So that's how it works, guys. That's how it works. And that's why I can go ahead and say I want this circle to be height of 10 and a width of 10, and position bottom over here, it's going to be 1/4, and right, it's going to be 1/4 as well. I'm just going to say save, and those are my 3 circles. And as you guys can see, our application is already looking exactly like this one. The only thing we are missing now is that when you fill in your information over here, it needs to update on the right hand side. I try my best to challenge you guys to either complete it or add functionality to it at the end of the video, because I do believe that when you code, you really learn, it really sticks with you. So I think I'm gonna challenge you guys to go ahead and add that functionality to this application. So I need you guys to go ahead and code that for me and add that functionality to this application. So what I'm going to do is quickly to show you more or less what you need to do. So up here in app.function, I'm just gonna say const card details. I'm gonna say set card details, and I'm gonna use state for this. So state, and I hit enter, it imports that state for me. And my state is going to be an object. On default is going to be an object, and I'm going to add the following information in my object. I'm going to say account holder. I'm just going to add a default account holder, or yeah, let's make it John Randy Doe. So that's going to be my account holder on default, and I'm going to say card underscore number. So card number on default is going to be 555-1515-000-333. So it's going to be my default card number, and I'm going to have expiring month. On default, my expiring month is going to be the 10th month, and my expiring year, same thing on default, it's going to be 2024. So now what I need you guys to do is, first of all, go ahead and take this information. On default, when the application loads, it needs to echo out this information over here on this card. So you need to replace this hard-coded code right here at the bottom. You need to replace this hard-coded code with this information. And then secondly, what you need to do is when someone types in the input and he leaves the input, you need to go ahead and update that value of this card detail at that object position so that it will update automatically inside of the card as well. So I think this is a really nice challenge for you guys that you can go ahead and knock out. I wanted to really focus just on a design of this application to get that Glassmorphism design going, and also to show you guys how we can achieve this using Tailwind CSS with minimum CSS in our coding our own CSS. But functionality wise, I really encourage you guys to go ahead and try to add this functionality to this application. Have it working. If you're struggling, hit me up in the comments. I'll be more than happy to assist you to get this. And if you want to cheat and go ahead and just check out how the code looks, I've loaded up in my GitHub as always with all my other applications. The link is in the description, but I highly recommend it. You guys first try to figure it out on your own, and if you struggle, do some Google. I think Googling is also a technique that developers must have. If Googling doesn't work, ask a friend. So with all of that said, with this nice look and feel design that we have over here for a checkout page, I feel that I have done my best. I'm handing over the keyboard to you for you guys to code, and I hope that you guys will stay safe until next time.